We are in a series called Algorithm. It's asking the question, how do I think biblically and critically about life's biggest decisions? We know that there are other voices that try and drown that out and buy me, look like me, do this, make these choices. And so as followers of Jesus Christ, you and I need to be equipped to think biblically and critically about all of those other voices. How do we make decisions in the biggest areas of our life? What informs our choices on things like our family, our marriages, our children, our education, our church, our jobs, our rest? The last 2 weeks we've talked about our resources when it comes to money. So today we want to talk about this, answering life's biggest decisions or making life's biggest decisions around the issue of singleness. Singleness. Now, you look around the room and you say, Scott, do you see how many kids just ran off? Or do you see that most of the folks here in this room are married? And I would say this, not necessarily true. It's almost even among our church of those who are single, those who are married. And whether you're married or single, you know somebody who's one or the other. All of us at one time have been in either camp. Some people are single because of timing. School's not done. I've got to finish this job assignment. Or, hey, I'm only here temporarily, or I expect there's going to be a move, and so I don't want to get too invested in a long-term relationship or in marriage. And some are single by choice. Haven't found the right person yet. Or I've tried that, and I've had sort of some painful experiences, and so thus far I'm still single. Some of you are single by circumstances, so circumstances outside of your control. You're a widow or a widower. You've experienced betrayal or abandonment. You're divorced, but not by your choice, or maybe by your choice, but it was so painful. Here's the question we want to wrestle today. How do I live life to the fullest as a single follower of Jesus Christ? How do I live life to the fullest as a single follower of Jesus Christ? Now, single people have unique opportunities and unique problems. The opportunities are great. You may have more time than married people or people who are married and have kids. By the way, if you're a single mom, you have no time, or if you're a single parent, I recognize that's probably the hardest calling in life to fulfill. But if you're single and you don't have the kids, or the kids are grown up and out of the house, you have more opportunities for time. You can pursue some of the things maybe that others don't have time to pursue. And maybe that's education, maybe that's a way to serve, maybe that's a hobby. It may be, as a single person, you have more resources, more time or talent or treasure, finances, than those who have a lot of family responsibilities or commitments they have to keep. But along with all those unique opportunities come some unique problems. They may be problems unique to those who are single. Those who are married we have our own set of problems, but maybe not these. And some of the problems that singleness face is restlessness. Where do I fit? What do I do? What's relationship going to be like in the future? And there's a restlessness around that. Or there's loneliness. Even the most challenging marriage, there is, at the end of the day, someone else there. They'll be there when you get home or when you get up in the morning. Single people don't have that. It's fundamentally different to not have someone to share life with, or to have shared life with someone only to be brokenhearted, betrayed, or abandoned. And loneliness can pay a visit overnight in the dark hours. There's discontent. This isn't what I chose. I want something different. When, oh, when will the Lord send me the right one? And those voices in our heart can present unique problems for those who are single. So how can I live life to the fullest as a follower of Jesus Christ who's single? Let me From the book of Proverbs, it's been sort of the textbook for our algorithm theory series, rather, as we're learning how to think thoughts that enable us to make good choices, wise choices in life, biggest decisions. Proverbs chapter 16. Let me see if we can't ferret out 4 choices, 4 ways to think, if you're a single person, for whatever reason, to live life to the fullest as a follower of Jesus Christ. Proverbs 16, verses 1 through 3. The plans of the heart belong to man. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the next thing. Here's my plan. But the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. The reality of when that plan may get spoken out or executed on, that's going to be something the Lord has a say in. We can plan to our heart's content, but that doesn't always turn out that way, and God has something to say about that. And all the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit, the heart, the motives. Verse 3, love this encouragement. Commit your way to the Lord and your plans will be established. Doesn't mean that the plans might not be changed or adjusted based on the Lord's input, but they're established. Let me give you the first discipline of life to live out your life to the fullest as a single follower of Jesus Christ. Be devoted to God. Sometimes, I think it's true for married people as well, or people pursuing career or whatever, sometimes we mistake the treasure, the means for the end. And we think the treasure is, I'm single, but I want to be married. That's not the treasure. Be devoted to God, and you'll be established in that. Being married can be the most painful thing you'll ever do, and also the most rewarding. It's pursuing the God who established marriage as a model for those who are called to marriage. That's the thing to pursue. So as a single person, be devoted to God. We get so wrapped up in looking at the means. I want to be married. I don't want to be alone. I don't like this, night after night by myself. And yet the greatest need of our heart can be filled by God. My observation of single people has been that some decide, well, if I'm single, I'm going to make the most of it. I'll just live like hell right now because I'm going to have to live like heaven after I get married. And I can pursue all kinds of relationships, and to me it's the party life, and all that time's going to go away, but boy, for now, let's make the most of it. And that can lead you to some dark places, some foolish decisions that may have implications for you down the road. Don't be devoted to sensuality, giving full rein to lust, saying, well, I got no other commitments to anyone else. As a follower of Jesus Christ, our first commitment is to Him. Be devoted to God. While you're in this season of singleness, make pursuit of Him the priority. I was so helped this week by something I read. In fact, the quote's going to come up on the screen. Your worth, listen, single person, your worth does not depend on you finding someone to marry. That's good enough to call for a response from you, so I'm going to read it again. Your worth does not depend on you finding someone to marry. Be devoted to God. He is the one who created you, has called you to Himself, has shaped you and given you the gifts, and who has you in this moment, in this season, in a place of singleness. Don't think that somehow someone else is going to complete you to the place of giving you your worth. You may have opportunities now as a single person to follow God, to serve Him, to grow in your faith in Him in ways that you will never have again. This may be the best time of spiritual growth in your history as a follower of Jesus Christ. Make the most of it. Second, how Do I live life to the fullest as a single follower of Jesus Christ? Be devoted to God. Second, be committed to growth. Excuse me, be committed to growth. Do the things that you have the freedom to do now that maybe because of job or commitments to the home or commitments to young children, married folk cannot do. Travel, but do it with purpose. You may be thinking I'm crazy to say this, but crazier things have happened. Well, why not take a year off of work and go serve on the mission field? You're probably not going to be able to do that once you're married or have kids. Maybe you're single again and your kids are grown. What are you doing? What's the adventure of a lifetime that you've dreamed of and thought of as a way to follow God's calling in ways you could never do if you were in a married or a different circumstance? Be committed to growth. Serve. Spend less time ruining or regretting your circumstance and more time investing in personal growth. Now's the time where you may learn the new skill or get the next degree or like I said, take 2 years off and go serve somewhere. By the way, follow up with me on that. There are opportunities, whether it be a year or 2 years at a time, for you to do that, both in the United States, North America, and around the world. But commit to growth. Don't waste this season. Do you know what happens while we're out looking for something else? Life happens. So grow through this season. Painful experiences, what has God taught you? Greatest season of life ever? Great, embrace it. Be committed to grow. I love what Jim Elliot said. Jim Elliot was a Wheaton College grad who went to Central America to share the gospel and became one of 5 missionaries who was killed, martyred for his faith. That opened up thousands of missionaries all around the world that began to serve as a result of him. Here's what Elliot said: wherever you are, be all there. That's so good. You think of the contrast of biblical examples of those who are single. Think of the Virgin Mary. I mean, imagine, like, you're a single woman. Maybe you're, hoping for an engagement. And God says, by the way, you're going to get pregnant. It's going to be out of wedlock. It's going to be supernatural. Like, that's a lot. And it's going to cause heartache. In fact, the angel said, a sword will pierce your own heart. You know Mary's response to that? May it be to me according to your word. There was not what I chose for this season of life, but because I'm devoted to God, I'm going to grow through that. And she became, of course, a model of what it is to live out your faith in difficult circumstances. Contrast that with an Old Testament hero, Samson. He's a he-man with a she problem. And the first time he tried to get engaged, he said to his parents, hey, I love this woman. It's very blunt. Get her for me. Because it was day of arranged marriages. And his mom and dad said, yeah, no, that's not going to be a good plan. He's like, I don't care. Get her for me. Listen to this. I want her. In the face of sage counsel from his parents, he got married. Well, actually, he didn't. The engagement was broken off the day of the wedding. She ended up marrying someone else, and that didn't work out too good for Samson. So his next thing was like, I know, I fell in love with a prostitute. May work in the movies, didn't work out for Samson. That prostitute's name was, there's a woman named Delilah. Didn't end well. Samson, called, gifted, empowered, used his singleness to just pursue whatever he chose to do. And he died alone, imprisoned, not achieving all the things God had called him to do. Be devoted to God, be committed to growth. 3, how do I live life to the fullest as a single follower of Jesus Christ? Be careful in friendship. Be careful in friendship. Here's the one, well, there were actually three things. I'll just give you the one that I gave to our kids when they went off to college. That first semester, go slow. Be really thoughtful about who you spend time with and who's going to be a friend. Proverbs says this, the wise person is cautious in friendship. Now, Proverbs 22:1 says this, it's going to be projected on the screen for you. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. It's your reputation. It's the reputation of those you befriend. And favor is better than silver or gold. Sometimes, and maybe it's out of a desire to fit in or it's driven by loneliness, that we choose the least common denominator. Like, what's the easiest friend group to get into? That may not be the best friend group to get into. And so, single person, especially in a dating relationship, if they're pressing you into areas that are not helpful or healthy or godly for you, don't move forward. Now, I realize I've been married 2/3 of my life. You're like, come on, it's easy for you to say. You're right, it's easy for me to say. I don't pretend to know exactly what you experience, but I will tell you this. You will purchase for yourself a lot of pain down the road if you're not careful in friendship and relationships. Remember we said earlier, your worth is not determined by being married to someone else? And if those friends aren't adding to your growth and your value, your devotion to God, get a new set of friends. And if that long-term relationship is dragging you down, it may be time for a really painful process of thought, decision-making, and maybe time for a new long-term relationship. Be careful in friendship. Fourth, how do I live life to the fullest as a single follower of Jesus Christ? Be devoted to God, be committed to growth, be careful in friendship. Fourth, be hopeful in outlook. Be hopeful in outlook. It's one of those verses that's sort of become a repeating theme in this series. Let me read it to you. Proverbs 24:3-4. By wisdom a house is built. And I'm not simply talking about the bricks and mortar. I'm talking about your family, your house. By wisdom a house is built. By understanding it's established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Be hopeful. If you will make single person, if you will make hard choices now, wise choices now, precious things will follow. Listen, the easy way is rarely the good way long term. Mom and dad probably, if you're young, mom and dad probably have great counsel for you. Listen. No one loves you more, no one knows you better. Be hopeful in outlook. I had, a few years ago now, about 5 years ago actually, a friend of mine called me, pastor, another city, another state. He's like, hey, Scott, man, and he just poured out this, it's a really tough situation with a superior. Really hard. And I'm like, wow, man, that's a lot. So I didn't have a ton of like specific do this, do that, and listen, maybe a little bit of counsel, and then I say, hey, man, listen, here's what I'll tell you. Proverbs 10:9. The man of integrity walks securely. Whatever happens, you tell the truth. You be a man of integrity. You make courageous decisions. And it was so hard. You know how it is when churches are, well, thankfully, I don't know this personally, but it's been the case in some churches. It's riven, and people get into groups, and they get into divisions, and they choose sides. And he steadfastly refused to choose sides. And so you know what happened? It was like both sides got mad at him. And it was just a brawl. And he actually got sat down for a while. Thought he was going to lose his job. Every time I talk to him, I ended the conversation by saying, Proverbs 10:9, the man of integrity walks securely. 5 years later, the church has never been healthier. He's leading that congregation. They're seeing the church grow and thrive. They're planting other churches. Some of you, single person, some of you, yeah, but Scott, like, And it's tough for me right now. I don't pretend to understand everything you're going through. I will tell you this. If you will be a man or a woman of integrity, you will walk securely through that season. And let me close this message because half of us are married. What would I say to us married folk? How do we treat those who are single? It was funny. After the first service, a single lady took me aside and said, "You know what you should tell them? Tell them stop saying stuff." I said, "What do you mean?" Like, "You're so pretty. Why aren't you married?" I know we mean well, but they don't know either. So how should we as married folk treat those? Number one, welcome them. You understand, they don't need to be fixed, right? You understand that? Singleness, the Bible holds out as an advantage for following Jesus. Just welcome them, include them. Second, welcome them. Second, include them. Invite them to dinner. Melissa Barber, terrific staff member before she moved to South Carolina. Who knew, right? And we still talk from time to time, love her. And I was talking to her about the singleness thing, right? And she said, "You know, Scott, like when you go to the airport for travel, Vicky can take you or your kids take you or a friend takes you and they're there to meet you when you get home. I'm single. Nobody knows, maybe nobody cares if I arrive safely from a trip." Wow, never thought of that. During COVID, people get sick and you got a spouse or you got children to look after you. I spent days in my apartment alone. Oh. Welcome them, include them. 3, pray for them. Pray for them. You see somebody in the congregation, they're single, pray for them. And not in a like, "Oh, you poor soul." I pray that you make this the best season of life you'll ever have. Let me do that. Let's close this service by praying. And let's make sure as a congregation we are the kind of people, thank you, that are welcoming, including, and praying for all kinds. Father, Lord, we just love those men and women in our church who are single, for whatever reason, Lord. I pray that this would be a church where they feel at home, welcomed and included. Father, help all of us to be devoted to you. Help us, Lord, to choose growth. Be careful in our friendships. And Father, be hopeful that we will be men and women of integrity. And because of that, whatever season in which we find ourselves, we'll walk securely. Lord, will you comfort, encourage, provide hope and companionship for those who are alone? Make it so, Lord, we pray in Jesus' strong name. And all God's people said,